All right, well, back home in California, start out this video saying a lot's happened in the past 9 days. First of all, let me start out with saying congratulations to Ott DeFoe. The guy is amazing. I think that's 3 wins now in Texas, and pretty much, guy's amazing. That's all I got to say about that. But let me back up. So 9-10 days ago on a Wednesday, I flew out to go get my boat and truck into Dallas, and then on to Beaumont, where my truck and boat was at Boat Official Butch's house. I got delayed because of that big storm. Sat in the Dallas airport for 9 hours. That was not fun. Flew into Beaumont, got my truck, got back up to Rayburn. I actually rented Bobby Barrack's house over there by Sam Rayburn. Very nice. Recommend it to anybody. If you're ever at Rayburn, reach out to Bobby. Turns out I got a nail on my tire somehow. I had to deal with that, go out and practice. That cold front, the reason I was sitting in Dallas, the storms, wind blew, the drop the water temperatures, basically didn't see the sun all of practice, but us as fishermen got all kinds of excuses. Anyway, practice was kind of difficult. They had a giant high school tournament going on, and which is neat to see, kids out there fishing. It's great. But it really kind of eliminated where you could just pull in and fish. You just kind of had to look at things, kind of do some graphing with the Garmins and things like that. And I found some nice offshore grass, some hydrilla on the live scope, and had a few bites in practice. It wasn't crazy, and ultimately I love fishing shallow this time of year, pre-spawn. I figured for my day, the water temperatures were getting warm, the sun was out, the wind kind of stopped blowing, so I'm like, man, they got to be in these bushes. I went out there and I fished hard, and I caught, I think, 38 non-scoreable, non-2-pound bass. Never had a good bite, never lost any. My equipment did great. No excuses there. I just didn't figure it out. Kind of regrouped, had some ideas, and day 2 just kind of settled in. Just kind of went fishing like it was a new lake. Started off the morning, I was throwing a spinnerbait actually. It was kind of windy in the morning, and I'm like, man, it just feels right. Picked up Pro Big Dwag Spinnerbait at the swimbait trailer, 7.4 Daiwa Tatula spinnerbait rod. Actually, it's a bladed jig spinnerbait rod with a Daiwa Tatula Elite reel, 20-pound shooter, and just went kind of fishing the front sides of those big willow trees, the buckbrush on little points and stuff, and I actually caught my first scoreable bass in the tournament on that. It was a 5-pounder. I was relieved, to say the least. I'm like, okay, go around the corner. I had 3 more bites on the gavacho, and the reason I wasn't throwing the spinnerbait, it was kind of gnarly bushes, and what I was doing is I was skipping the gavacho back in there and just working it really, really slow. If you guys haven't seen or heard about the Tatula, the TWS version 1, actually, this is the first version of the SV spool for skipping the frog, got the bigger paddles, not a lot of backlashes. Like I said, it wasn't my equipment's fault. I had some decent bites in the morning. I'm like, here they come. They're going to show up. They're going to start spawning. Had a few, missed the frog. That's one of my favorite colors, by the way. That's a Jackal Gavacho Gold Gill. This time of year, if you got any kind of clean water, that's the deal. If the water's kind of muddy this time of year, I like black, but that Gold Gill, man, I've done some damage on that. Throwing 60-pound FX2 braid. One thing I do is I put a little silicone spray on there. It helps you, the line cast off there a lot easier. But that there is a DX frog rod made by Daiwa. It's exclusive run, so I really, really like that setup. And I just kind of fished around, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm throwing my spinnerbait, I'm throwing my frog. I had a PowerShot rigged up, and I really felt like when the wind slacked off, I was like, well, there was lots of local guys, everybody's like flipping and throwing. I was throwing big swim baits too on the edge of the brush, and believe it or not, I caught fish that big. And I'm like, they got to be in these bushes spawning. So I picked up my PowerShot. This here's a 7.6 casting Tatula rod. Really, really great for this technique. Has the right length, the right power. That's the New Zillion. As far as castability, I was making little short flips and pitches into that buckbrush. And one thing, I kind of upsized my line. Usually I'll do this with 10 to 12, maybe 14. I went to 16 and 18. I had 2 rods, same setup. And just because that brush was so gnarly, and I actually was getting bites in the middle of those bushes, majority of them were, you know, £1.5, £1.10, £1.14, £1.13, things like that. But I did manage to scratch out a few keepers. There's a fat robo worm, Martin's Madness. That's one of my favorite pre-spawn spawn colors, especially in that off-color water. A 3/0 Trocar flipping hook, and the weight that I normally do like with that setup is a 1/4 ounce Eco Pro tungsten drop shot weight. Just seems to be the right size, the right feel. Got my neighbor coming in hot over there, but I really felt like I was going to run into a big one between this, the frog, you know, and I actually threw a Cara frog around some of the, like there's this hay grass stuff, and I really wanted, I could envision where they were spawning. So that little Cara frog, bluegill color, just didn't happen, man. But I got out of there, I salvaged some points, and I'm like, okay, well, it wasn't the best of tournaments, but it could have been a disaster. Like I said, I fished hard, and ultimately I did not make the knockout round. So I had another game plan. There was a Wild West tournament starting on Friday. This was Tuesday afternoon when I got eliminated. Packed up my stuff, kind of threw some Delta stuff in the boat, some punching rods, some more frogs, things like that. And I'm like, I'm going to make that Delta tournament on Friday. Get up 4 a.m. This is Wednesday morning. Driving up Highway 175 out of Rayburn, almost to Dallas, and a big old whitetail jumps off the side of the embankment and proceeds to, we collide. That kind of spooked me a little bit. Never have hit a deer going anywhere in this country for 16, 17 years now. I've had some close calls. This time, it caused some major damage. Kind of pulled over the side of the road. OnStar came on. Make a long story short, had my truck towed to a collision shop. Like, what am I going to do? I can still make the Delta. That's the fisherman in me going, man, well, I still got time. I rented a U-Haul cargo box truck thing, like a 15-footer, threw some stuff out of my truck in there, hooked up the boat, and I'm like, I can still make this. Kind of a little sketchy, driving, you know, getting used to it, and go through Dallas in the middle of the day. Well, actually, it's about 4:30 now, in rush hour, towing my Vexus in this cargo truck thing, and I was going to try to make it all the way to past Albuquerque, and Carrie's like, no, you should stop. You've had a long day. It's dark, blah, blah, blah. I stopped in Tucumcari, New Mexico. Turns out there was a 60-car pileup just like 100 miles west of Tucumcari. So they had the Interstate 40 shut down anyway. And turns out if this collision with the deer wouldn't have happened, I might have been in the middle of that. I don't know. Stay the night in Tucumcari, get up like at 5:30, start driving, and come to a complete stop. They're still cleaning up the wreck. I drove in snow and ice pretty much till the other side, the west side of Flagstaff. Then the winds kicked up to 25 with gusts to 45 that said on the road signs. I made it home safe. I'm not saying sound because I'm still a little loopy. Made it home safe, got here like 1:30 a.m. That would be Thursday night, I believe. And so now I got to figure out my wife's Buick, I don't think is going to tow this boat, especially going over the San Luis Obispo grade. I got to go to Clear Lake. I got an Apex event coming up. Luckily, my buddy at Rancho Grande GMC is going to hook me up with a truck to use for maybe a week or so. But then I got to figure out if anybody has any suggestions how to get back to my truck in Gun Barrel City, Texas, so I can get my truck. So I don't know if I can rent a truck. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I got to do it. I say all that to say this. I love my job, and it's just minor setbacks. Like, no matter what job you have, you're going to have some issues, whether you're working behind a computer screen or, you know, you're delivering milk. You're always going to have setbacks and issues. Just something that happens. At least everybody was safe. Nobody got hurt with the deer accident. My feelings were a little hurt because my truck was brand new and now the bumper is under the tire. So I'm sure the lakeside collision is going to take care of it, and somehow we're going to make this work, and I'm going to go to Clear Lake and hopefully win that event, and then go get my boat from Lake Travis and continue on. So I know this is long, but just want to give a little recap of how I caught them and what I've been dealing with for the past 7, 8, 9 days. So there you go.